Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head down to Germany once again, and this is one of the beers that was released on the 26th of April 2019 through the small parties at Systembolaget here in Sweden. And this is a brewery that you have seen me review a couple of things from before. So we're going to go to the state of Bavaria, to a little town called Aying, just to the kind of southeast if you like of Munich, and we're having a taste of yet another beer from Privatbrauerei Ayinger. So this one is their Frühlingsbier, which literally translates into English as the spring beer, their spring seasonal beer. It comes in at 5.5% and it's a Keller beer kind of thing. Now the Keller beers and the Zwickel beers, they're a little bit more yeasty in character. They can be either top or bottom fermented, but usually the fermentation is at quite a low temperature. Keller beer of course literally translates into English as a cellar beer, and cellars usually are colder of course, but these beers are known to be a little bit more kind of yeasty and things like that, and the Zwickel is just like the little brother of the Keller beer from what I understand, just a little bit lighter in alcohol and things like this. But I think this is, I have had a Helles beer from these guys before, which is kind of similar in some ways, different brewing process and stuff though, but yeah, I know this is a brewery that's very good. The Celebrator of course is the beer that this brewery are particularly celebrated for, but it's really cool to be able to try one of their seasonal releases for you here on the channel. So I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer, and I always enjoy reviewing my German traditional beers of course too. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Privatbrauerei Ayinger before. No doubt there will be some more in the near future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the German beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then, to tell you a little bit about the Ayinger brewery then. So the Aying brewery was founded back in 1876 by Johann Liebhardt, who took over his parents' estate that they had bought back in 1810. So he was assisted by his wife Maria, and the pair had been inspired to open a brewery because of the economic boom in Germany following the victory over France in the Franco-Prussian War, which I believe was in the 1860s, 1870s if you like, and that was what led to the formation of Germany and the unification of Germany, I guess you could say as well. But they began constructing their brewery in 1877, and they produced their first beer in February of 1878. But during this time they could only brew beer between September and April in the winter, because this was the only time where it was actually cool enough for the fermentation processes to take place properly. I believe there was actually also laws in place that prohibited them from brewing during the summer as well. But the brewery continued to grow due to the development of the railways, telephones and electricity that all came at the beginning of the 20th century. But Johann passed on the brewery to his eldest daughter's husband, who was August Zehntmeyer. But Johann died in 1910, and then August had to fight in the First World War, and during this period the brewery was run completely by his wife and 3 young daughters, and due to the rationing of malt it was only about 15% of the full brewing capacity that they were actually able to use. So when August returned home from the war, the brewery was in trouble due to the economic crisis in Germany, hyperinflation and, basically government instability. You had the Cap Putsch and all of these kind of things going on at the time. But they also suffered from a fire, but they managed to rebuild the brewery, thankfully. And in the late 1920s, the brewery regained growth, and by bottling their beers, which started to reach Munich after the brewery invested in trucks. But in 1936, the brewery was then passed on to the eldest daughter of August, and this was Maria, and her husband Franz Kresnetz Inselkammer also actually took over and got involved in the brewery as well. But the brewery production lowered during the Second World War. However, France managed to grow the brewery very successfully in the post-war years. But the brewery bought the Platzel Hotel in Munich in 1953, and they invested heavily in their infrastructure in the late 50s and early 1960s. And in 1963, Maria and Franz passed on the brewery to their eldest son, Franz again, who had been training as a brewer, who had also been training in business and also studied as a master brewer at Weinstefan as well. but his brother Gustl ran the brewery tavern and Peter ran the Plaza Hotel in Munich, and under their stewardship the company continued to grow steadily. But the brewery celebrated the 100th anniversary in 1978, and the brewery helped establish a local history museum, and since then the brewery actually completed drilling to find their own water source, and they also opened up a new brewery building back in 1999, which is apparently one of the most technologically advanced in Europe. And as I say, this is one of the German or Bavarian beer names, I guess you should say, that probably a lot of foreigners will recognise. The Ayinger beer is very well known amongst in different places around the world, because it is one of the bigger German exports, if you like, outside the likes of Beck's and all of these kind of things. So if you're talking about a slightly kind of smaller company, if you like, Ayinger, the Ayinger Brauerei are really quite well known actually. And if you go to any good beer shop, you probably will be able to find an Ayinger beer. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. But just to list the other beers you can get from these guys, you get the Lagerhell, the Bayerische Pils, the Jahrhundert Pils, which is a really nice beer, the Bayerische Dunkel, which again I have tried and that's very nice, the Celebrator Doppelbock, which is probably their most respected beer actually. They've got the Kellerbier, the Leicherbräu Weisse, which I believe is the low alcohol Weizen, the Bräu Weisse and the Urweisse, and also the Radler as well. And their seasonals include the Winterbock, the Kirtebier, Frühlingsbier, and also the Weizenbock as well. And I think this is the only one of their seasonals that I might actually have tried, if memory serves me correctly. But yeah, that's all you really need to know about the Ayinger brewery just now. If you want to learn a little bit more, of course, you can check out the brewery website, and of course you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram and things like that too. But yeah, let's go on to the actual tasting of this beer then. We can get rid of the brewery notes. So as I mentioned to you earlier, this one is a 5.5% Keller beer, and it's, you know, the kind of style bracket this fits into is the Keller and the Zwickel beer. Just to repeat myself again, more of a yeasty style this one, fermented at slightly lower temperatures. The Zwickel is the kind of little brother of the Keller beer, if you want to be technical about it, lower in alcohol and flavour and things like that. But there you can see the Ayinger label. You can see the white and blue checks down there, which is the Bavarian part of the Bavarian state symbol. Of course, it does have one of these European Union symbols on the back to show, you know, one of these kind of geographically protected products. There you can see a little bit about the Ayinger thing as well, and this is a little picture, if you like. This is on pretty much all of the Ayinger beers. The labels are all very similar, just a different colour in this kind of trim thing, if you like, depending on what beer it is. There's the little top label, which again is kind of usually German beers that have that, and the bottle cap, of course, is the same as the little picture that is on the label there too. I always enjoy, I always quite like the traditional German style artwork. But yeah, let's get this guy out then, and we'll get on with the tasting. Now, I'll say something about my glassware as well, because normally you would drink this beer in a German stein or a glass or something like this, but I do not have a see-through stein that is a half litre, and I quite like the kind of tulip glasses, because to be honest, they're the best all-rounders for different beer styles. They give you a good bit of the aroma, and you know, you can gulp from them, you can sip from them, but this beer is one, of course, that is designed to be gulped a little bit. But yeah, that's about 2/3 of the beer in the glass, which is fine for the moment, and we can take a little look at this then. But yeah, I prefer these little Belgian tulip glasses actually. They're very good all-rounders. It doesn't matter what kind of beer you've got actually. So as you can see with this one, and as you would expect from a Keller beer or a Zwickel beer, it's poured a nice kind of golden straw colour. I was just checking with this because, you know, Keller beers normally are a little bit hazy, but there is a little bit of sedimentation at the bottom of this one, so we'll maybe pour that in a little bit later, but we can take a little taste of it just now and see how it is when it's a bit clearer. Of course, this beer probably will have sat for a month or so while it's been brought over to Sweden, so you will get sedimentation in it, but you can see there's a few little bits of sediment floating around in this one. But at the moment you can see it's a nice pale golden straw colour. There's a solid 2 fingers or so of a frothy white head on this one, which is what you would expect. 1 or 2 bumpier bits towards the top of that, 1 or 2 big bubbles of carbonation sticking towards the side, and a few smaller ones just going up towards the bottom of that head there. But you know, overall, not too surprising when you consider what style it is. If I put my fingers behind the glass at the moment, you can see this beer is pretty much crystal clear. But let's take a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we get on with this one. Ooh, yeah. So straight away, German noble hops out of this one. You've got that very distinctive, you know, the Hallertau, the Tettnanger hops. You've got the Sats from Czech as well. You've got the Styrian Goldings and Dana and stuff like that from Slovenia. You know, they've all got this kind of similar hop profile. I guess you've got Lubelski from Poland as well that's quite similar. But yeah, you get this nice, quite fresh floral aromaticity out of it. Some of the lighter grassiness as well, and there's a little touch of a kind of slightly sweet earthiness to this beer too. But yeah, you can smell a nice bready, doughy, yeasty kind of thing coming out of this beer as well. Yeah, nice doughy, bready, yeasty quality coming out of this beer, which is you can definitely smell it. This one is a little bit more sharp in its yeasty qualities compared to some of the other beers you're going to find. Obviously, the exception to that would be the Hefeweizen. That is a pretty damn yeasty beer. But yeah, this one, you can really smell that nice kind of white bready quality to the base of this beer, but the yeast just, I think, gives it a little bit more kind of sharpness, and it sort of plays into the floral aromaticity that you're getting from the noble hops out of this one. So this beer, it does have a good little bit of a citrusy, lemony quality to it, and I think part of that is coming from the yeast, and obviously part of it will be coming from the hops in here. I would guess that the hops in this will most likely be Hallertau. I'm sure Tettnang is actually Baden-Württemberg, it's in the northern, the very northern part of Bavaria actually, but the Hallertau hops are from Bavaria from what I remember. But yeah, it smells really quite nice, this beer. It smells like a typical kind of German golden beer, if that makes sense. It's got the kind of typical German noble hoppiness. It's got a nice little bit of a kind of bready base to it as well. It's not too far away from a Helles in terms of its aroma, but you can smell a little bit of sharpness, which I suspect comes from the yeast actually. But yeah, nothing particularly surprising about this beer in terms of the aroma either, to be honest with you, when you consider what style of beer it is. But to me, just a little bit sharper than some of the ones I've probably smell in this category. I don't get to review too many Keller or Zwickel beers on the channel, but hopefully I can review a few more over the next little while. I quite enjoy reviewing these German traditional beers, like I said. But without further ado then, let's get stuck into this beer. So this one is the Frühlingsbier, the spring release beer, Keller beer at 5.5%. From Privatbrauerei Aying, Ayinger, just outside of Munich in Bavaria in Germany. Let's get stuck in. Slange, Skål, Prost. Yeah, I have to say, that's pretty nice actually. You know, I say this in most of my German videos. My whole thing with beer started with these traditional German beers. It's particularly the Rauch beers from Bamberg, thanks to my friend Daniel, and then I went to live in Heidelberg and got really into the Helles and the Dunkels and the Doppelbocks and things like this as well. But yeah, this is nice actually. In terms of how this beer goes, I mean, if we're comparing it, because I'm guessing a lot of people that will watch this video outside of Germany won't know too much about the Keller beers and the Zwickels and stuff like that. To me, this beer comes across, it's got the kind of freshness and crispness of the Pils, but it has a little bit more of the breadiness that you might expect of a Helles or something like that. It's got a really nice freshness and hoppiness to it, but it has a little bit of that breadiness that you would expect of a Munich Helles. Or something like that. Actually, this is a nice beer. This one gets a thumbs up from me. I really like this. I'm a huge fan of the German Helles beers, of course, as well as the Dunkels, the Doppelbock, and the Rauch beers and stuff like this. But yeah, I really like this one, so it gets a thumbs up from me. So yeah, let's try and break down the flavour of this a little bit more, actually. Yeah. So, with this beer then, I would say, first off, you're going to notice that the middle of your palate's just blanketed with this nice sort of smooth, bready quality. That you'll feel that just blanket in the middle of your tongue, and you can feel, I suspect there's a little bit of Pilsner malt being used in here, because there is an element of crispness to that malt base. So you've got the smoothness underneath, but when you come further forward towards the palate, you've just got that little bit of crispness in there. So I think they've maybe used a little touch of Pilsner malt in here. In the very centre of your palate, you can pick up some of the sweetness. There is a little bit of a kind of biscuity malt to this, and the further you go into the aftertaste, actually, you can feel there is a very slight kind of grainy quality to this beer too. I do think the yeastiness is, the yeasty quality of this beer is adding a little bit to the kind of fresh, crisp vibe that you get out of this one. But yeah, very smooth kind of underneath. A little bit of crispness more towards the front of the palate, some biscuity sweetness in the middle of your tongue, a little bit of a grainy note as well, and the hoppy side of the beer is really fresh too. In the back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of a slight earthiness in there. As you come kind of further forward along the sides of your tongue, you can feel some of the nice, slightly spicy floral aromaticity coming out of this beer. And as you go round the front curve of the palate, it's just a little bit lighter and more grassy as well, which is quite nice. I would say the floral aromaticity has a little bit of it almost has a little touch of a kind of spicy note to it as well, actually, which is kind of quite interesting. But yeah, if you go behind the front curve of the palate on this one, you really can get out a little bit of a there is a good bit of fruitiness from the grassy esters in there. It does has a little bit of that slightly lemony quality to it, which is interesting. But yeah, I like how everything goes together in this one. It's a really quite sessionable beer. So let's just put the rest of it in, see if we get a bit more of a haziness out of it. Doesn't look like it actually, but yeah, there is a little bit of yeast kind of gathered on the bottom of this of the beer there, but you can see a couple of little sediment particles just floating around in this one. But yeah, I mean, for me, this beer, as I said, it has that it really has a nice crispness to it, this one, and I think usually the Frühlingsbiers are pretty much like this. I mean, a lot of people in Germany will go, or a lot of tourists that will go to Germany will go to Oktoberfest, but you also get Frühlingsfest as well, where you get the kind of crisper beers like this. The Oktoberfest beers are a little bit higher in alcohol. I don't know if the Frühlingsfest ones are. But yeah, you know, this beer to me is a nice kind of fresh, easy drinker. It's somewhere between, it has some of the kind of freshness and crispness that you want of the Pils, but it also has a nice little bit of that kind of thicker, more bready quality that you would want from a Helles or something like that, actually, which is quite nice. So yeah, if that sounds like your kind of thing, if you like the Pils, like if you like Pilsner Urquell, for example, I think you'll quite like this beer. If you like, for example, some of the beer, the Helles beers from Augustina, you're going to enjoy this one as well. So, you know, yeah, if that kind of sounds, if the Augustiner beers and the Pilsner Urquell sort of combination works for you, I think you will quite enjoy this one, actually. If you probably blended those two beers together, you'd have something that wasn't too far off this. So yeah, but a thumbs up to Privatbrauerei Ayinger for this. I think this is a nice kind of crisp, easy drinker, and it's one of the things I think that's great about Germany, actually. They produce beers on the big scale, but they still manage to get a hell of a lot of flavour out of them, and that's a slightly different perspective on brewing, you have to say, too. But yeah, to me, a really nice, just crisp, easy drinking beer. This one, I'm finding the more and more that I drink of this beer, the more kind of bready and yeasty it starts to become, actually. So just be aware of that when you try this one, actually. It will evolve a little bit the more and more that you drink of it, but to me, a very solid beer, and I'm glad I was able to taste this one, actually. I will need to keep an eye out for the other seasonal beers from Ayinger and see if I can review them as well. That would be quite nice. In terms of the mouthfeel of this beer, then, I'd describe this beer as being, for a German beer, it is kind of mid-bodied. The carbonation is quite smooth, you know, as I always say with the German beers, and probably the Germans laugh at me for saying this, it does have that particular, that almost kind of Brauhaus smoothness to it, a very smooth mouthfeel. This one, I've always found German beer very, very smooth. But this one does have a little bit of crispness to it as well, actually, particularly towards the front of the palate. I find it quite crisp. But the mouthfeel overall, smooth, little touch oily, a little bit crisp as well. The middle of your palate is fairly smooth. There's a little touch of sweetness in there and also some crispness. Nice little bit of a kind of... nice little bit of hoppy bitterness. I think you're looking around maybe 25, 30 IBUs out of this beer, and you've also got a little bit of a fruity note in there as well. So I always say the fruity bit comes out just behind the front curve of your palate. You get that little oily bubble, and for me it's a very kind of straight up grassy sort of ester out. This one is kind of grassy and lemony, if you like, so it has got a little bit of that too. So pretty much everything that you would want from a Kellerbier, to be honest. A little bit like a lager, a little bit like a Helles. So yeah, really nice beer, this one, and I'm glad I was able to review it for you. So let's leave it at that. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Privatbrauerei Ayinger as well, and I'm sure it will return to these guys in the fairly near future. This one was the Frühlingsbier, a 5.5% Kellerbier from Privatbrauerei Aying in Aying, just outside of Munich in Bavaria in Germany. Until the next time, Slàinte just now, and I'll catch you guys later. Slàinte, skål, prost.